It's so clear that Ron Klain and the communications team had a plan for the week, and it included laying down these foundations of what his presidency is going to be about. Today, the first speech from a decades-long member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and one-time vice president, putting his stamp on U.S. foreign policy. And then this very forceful speech, making clear that he was left, nada, and is working every single day very aggressively to fill the stockpiles of vaccines.
Yeah, Nicole, as I was talking to White House officials last week during that impeachment trial, there was a lot of talk, of course, about their counter-programming strategy, but they always knew they weren't going to necessarily break through with the coverage of the trial. They thought it was important, though, to have those pictures, those moments of him in the Oval Office, meeting with business leaders, meeting with bipartisan senators, talking about infrastructure, meeting with mayors and governors, talking about his relief plan. But they always were eyeing this week as a really critical week to reestablish his presidency, remind the country, frankly, of who was now the president of the United States. And so you saw him leaving Washington to do so on Tuesday in a forum that has served him very well during the campaign, that town hall event in Wisconsin. And then today, all at once, capturing both the domestic and the foreign policy challenges that he's inheriting this morning with a series of events, the G7 meeting, as well as the address to the Munich Security Forum. And then here you saw him in Michigan, one of the most hard-fought battleground states of them all, doing two things, really. One is taking a measure of credit for the progress they've made. Now, you know, it's always a dangerous thing to do for any White House to take too much credit before the American people is ready to dish it out. But he did think it was important to reestablish what the situation he was that he inherited from the former guy, as he put it the other day. The last time he was here in Michigan was on Halloween when he was campaigning with former President Obama. He knew that tackling the pandemic was going to be the biggest challenge, the way his presidency was going to be measured. But he didn't know quite as bad as the situation with vaccinations that he was going to be inheriting. So he had to establish that, talk about the steps he's taken, especially the Defense Production Act, to enable Pfizer to ramp up their production to such a level that he can set now that goal of July, having enough vaccine supply for the entire country to get vaccinated. But then continuing that very important sales pitch, Nicole, he needs to get that COVID relief plan passed. We're going to see it maybe hit the floor at the end of next week. And so he was challenging the Republicans.
Yeah.
Tell me what's too big about this package. Is it too big to extend unemployment insurance? Is it too big to fund the vaccination program, the testing that's still needed? The White House really does believe that this is a bipartisan plan. And you heard him make that argument here in a battleground state, that while Republicans in Washington may be against this, the overwhelming majority of this country is with him, and they want to continue to sustain that momentum. And that's what you saw this week, Nicole.
Mike Memoli, I want to play you one more piece of sound from this morning, and then I promise I'll let you go take shelter somewhere warmer, because this to me seemed like the Joe Biden that you have covered for a very long time, getting back to what I think his folks would say is the centerpiece of his foreign policy, getting back to basics, which was what his announcement speech was about when he said he was going to run to restore the soul of the country. Let me show you this part of the speech today to the Munich conference about restoring and acknowledging just how fragile our democracy still is.
Historians are going to examine and write about this moment as an inflection point, as I said. And I believe that every ounce of my being that democracy will and must prevail. We must demonstrate that democracy can still deliver for our people in this changed world. That, in my view, is our galvanizing mission. Democracy doesn't happen by accident. We have to defend it, fight for it, strengthen it, renew it. We have to prove that our model isn't a relic of history. It's the single best way to revitalize the promise of our future.
These soaring comments about democracy, I'm starting to understand that they're not talking about mushy, shaved off, bipartisan deals. They're talking about building wide numbers of public support, 65% around big ideas like democracy. And it seems that he's going to put some of the sort of time and energy in the bully pulpit at restoring this very idea that our democracy needs to be protected from those who don't value it, from those who would have it overturned.
Well, Nicole, Joe Biden was always a fan of attending the Munich Security Conference. In fact, one of the last times he did so was with your former boss, John McCain.
Yeah.
And the last time he did so, in fact, was one of the just a month or two before he announced his candidacy. And it was a moment that was really important in shaping his opinion of what that campaign was about and why he crossed that line to decide to enter that race. He talked about seeing another person who spoke at that conference, Vice President at the time, Mike Pence, and seeing the, as he put it, deafening silence with which he was greeted when he said he was there to represent President of the United States, Donald Trump. And then the overwhelming reaction that he received later when he spoke, as he put it today, as just a professor and as a private citizen. That moment, I think, really helped push him to enter the race, and what he has told me multiple times, which is he wasn't going to enter if not for Donald Trump. And this is an important moment to reestablish America's preeminent role as the leader for democracy with a small d.